Right? Because y'all wasn't skipping nothing. I took too much time putting it together for you. King James the First and the Sixth. So we got to know which King James we talking about because there was a few of them. We talking about the fifth and the first. The King of Scotland and England.
Now I'm about to go into a PowerPoint presentation where I'm going to present information that my brother Shakka didn't present. And this is not a personal attack against the brother.
And the Hebrew Israelites on the corner when they say he wasn't gay. Some people said that because they was mad because he kicked them out of their council. No.
I'm against biased scholarship. And what I find in the black community amongst black scholars is there's a lot of biased scholarship.
He was a faggot, accepted. He loved Robert Carr. He loved George Villiers, right? And his cousin, the Duke of Lexington. Duke of Lennox. Okay, Lennox, you know what I'm saying?
Scholarship that's presented that is one-sided, that when you actually do real studies, you find out there's a whole other side to the argument that these men are not making.
The Duke gives it to King James and the Dookie.
It's easy to pull up all the information saying King James was a homosexual. But what about the information that says he was not? What about that?
A secret passage from King James' bedroom to his bedroom. They recently found it. It's in the news. This faggot is still making news today. And the Hebrew Israelites on the corner when they say he wasn't gay. Some people said that because they was mad because he kicked them out of their council. No.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you, brothers and sisters, about 17 slides out of 100 that I have. We're going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation in the future where I'm going to present all 100 slides, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that King James is not a homosexual. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm going to be presenting information that's never been presented to you before.
A secret passage between King James' bedroom and this man's bedroom ain't got nothing to do with somebody else being angry. The passage is there. Now what he need a secret passage for? Why everybody else couldn't know about the passage? Because it's not written up, nobody talked about it. So apparently they didn't know it was a secret. But that's what it is. Yeah. Here you go.
Peace and black power, family. Welcome to another Sarnetta Black News 102 House of Consciousness Sarnetta TV Sarnetta Studio production. I am here with Brother Shakka Ahmose and Brother Danyaahla.
Here you go. Right? Because y'all wasn't skipping nothing. I took too much time putting it together for you. King James the First and the Sixth. So we got to know which King James we talking about because there was a few of them. We talking about the fifth and the first. The King of Scotland and England, June 19th, 1566. Right? So June 19th, 1566, 27 March 1625. There he is. Now, I use this picture because the Hebrew Israelites like to say he was black. Now I'm going to tell you, I have no problem with that because truthfully speaking, if you read Winston Churchill said one of the reasons that he himself personally did not like King James or that King James wasn't liked is because he was dark of skin. To mention a whole bunch of other obnoxious things about him, but to insult him, he said, and he was dark of skin. He was dark-skinned. That was the exact words he used. Winston Churchill said that. So I have no problem. If a British dignitary is saying, hey, King James is dark-skinned, cool. But what you got to remember, dark-skinned don't mean black. There's all kind of dark-skinned people in this world that ain't black. All right? So let's keep it 100. When a white man calls another man dark-skinned, particularly one of his own, look, to people in Russia, Italians are dark-skinned. Greeks are dark-skinned. That don't make them black. But you want to go with black? I'm going to go with that. So here we go. Right? The heavily documented history of King James homosexuality. Hold that Bible. Where that Bible at? Your King James Bible. I said Queen, right? Yeah. King James Bible.
Now I'm about to go into a PowerPoint presentation where I'm going to present information that my brother Shakka didn't present. And this is not a personal attack against the brother, but I'm against biased scholarship. And what I find in the black community amongst black scholars is there's a lot of biased scholarship. Scholarship that's presented that is one-sided, that when you actually do real studies, you find out there's a whole other side to the argument that these men are not making. It's easy to pull up all the information saying King James was a homosexual. But what about the information that says he was not? What about that? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you, brothers and sisters, about 17 slides out of 100 that I have. We're going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation in the future where I'm going to present all 100 slides, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that King James is not a homosexual. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm going to be presenting information that's never been presented to you before. I'm also going to present information to you to prove that King James is a black man, because Shakka touched on that. But he said that King James was a dark-skinned white man. That is pseudo information. But I ain't dealing with that right now. I'm dealing with the homosexual vibe. Whenever you're ready, man, put the first slide up on the screen.
Now, we're going to find out about your King James. All right? Heavily documented. I put that up there on purpose. The heavily documented history of King James homosexuality. Uh-oh. His first documented male favorite at the age of 13 was his older relative, Ahmose Stewart, 1st Duke of Lennox. This is from Aldrich Robert Witherspoon, right? Gary Robert, or whatever. Yeah, Gary Robert Witherspoon, all right? Who's Who in Gay and Lesbian History, from Antiquity to World War II, Rutledge, page 226 to 227. All right? Now, this was his first male favorite, his relative, Ahmose Stewart. Now, if King James is black, as you claims he was, this is his cousin. His cousin wasn't black, and that's a true painting of his cousin. So y'all got some explaining to do, okay? Everybody else around, y'all got to show me some other black pictures of his relatives to make me believe he black. But if he black, okay, this was his first love interest. Who's Who in Gay and Lesbian History. It's the cover of the book. There's a link. I'll give you links and sources. I ain't making nothing up. Here we go. You Hebrew Israelites deserve this. They deserve it because they're mean-spirited people. That's why. No other reason. They're mean-spirited, and they're dishonest. And they have no humility, and they don't know how to say, hey, maybe you're right, and maybe we didn't know, and maybe we can learn something new together. That's not their personality or disposition. Their thing is, we're right, you're wrong, and you are horrible people as well for not agreeing with us. And you're going to burn in hell, and Yahweh's going to kill you. Somebody told me today Yahweh's going to kill me. Let that on my YouTube page. I said, you people are sick. I would never let my son become a Hebrew Israelite. You're nothing but a hate cult. That's all you are. Period. Right? Here you go. So that's his cousin who he fell in love with at 13. Okay? Uh-oh. Who this? A few years later, after the controversy over his relationship with Lennox, that's his cousin right here, Lennox, the Duke of Lennox. See him? Ahmose Stewart, 1st Duke of Lennox. That's his first one. Documented. That was his first documented love. We ain't talking about the undocumented ones. We just talking about the documented ones, right? King and the Earl, much more than friends. A few years later, after the controversy with his relationship with Lennox faded away, he began a relationship with Robert Carr, 1st Earl of Somerset. Wonder how he became Earl. Homosexuality and Civilization by Lewis Compton, page 386. There's the cover of the book. There's the link. So hold on. If it's not true, see, I can understand if one person said it, or if two persons said it. But when you got a whole body of literature saying it with letters and with eyewitnesses, testimony, I'm sorry. Either I'm going to believe the people who were there at the time, or much closer to him in time, or no, I got to believe this Hebrew Israelite dude on the corner? Nah, dude, I'm sorry. I'm going with the documentation. I'm a historian. I go with the documentation. So this is apparently was his taste. This is what King James liked. This is Robert Carr. So if you look like that, run and hide. Okay? Okay, here we go.
All right, this is from a book called The Basilicon Doron. And I find it funny that my brother Shakka did not present this. And when I called in, I asked Shakka, why did you not present the Basilicon Doron? For you brothers and sisters that don't know what the Basilicon Doron is, the Basilicon Doron is instructions that King James left behind for his heirs, those that would rule after him, about what they should do when they rule. This is called a primary source, not a secondary source, not a third tier source, but a primary source. Okay? This is from the Basilicon Doron, page 46. It says, they quarreled against me, talking about his enemies, not for anything or vice in me. Okay, hold on a second, because I can't really see it. You can't see? Right. Okay. This is the Basilicon Doron, page 46. This is what Shakka did not show you. Now, if you are a scholar and you're presenting unbiased scholarship, now when I called in, if brothers and sisters that was watching the show, I called in, and Shakka made a statement before I called in, and then when I called in, he would not validate what it is he said. I asked Shakka. Shakka said he presented all, A-L-L, all the information on King James. When I called in, I asked Shakka, did you present all the information? You know what he told me? He presented all the information that he has. That's nice. Well, now I want you brothers and sisters to take a notepad and a pen out, and I want you to pay attention, because this is information he did not present, and this is stuff he does not have. This is from the Basilicon Doron, King James's instructions to his sons on how to rule. Page 46. It says, they quarreled against me, not for any evil or vice in me, but because I was king. That's why people spoke against him, because he was king. But because I was king, which they thought the highest of evil, and because they were ashamed to profess this quarrel, they were busy to look narrowly in all my actions. So anything the king did, somebody always had something to say. And I warrant you a mote in my eye, yes, a false report was matter enough to work upon. Meaning when people made false reports, everybody ran along with that false information. Next slide.
Oh, an authentic letter confirming, I left out the R, confirming the king's homosexual behavior. Now this is an authentic letter. James fell in love with the poor young Scotsman named Robert Carr. The king leans on his arm, pinches his cheeks, smooths his ruffled garment, and when he looks upon Carr, directs his speech to others. Thomas Howard, Earl of Suffolk, in a letter 1611. That is a direct quote from Thomas Howard's letter. Now, why is that important? Because who was Thomas Howard to King James? He's not some Hebrew Israelite dude on the corner telling me what I need to know, or what I think he thinks I need to know. That was from a letter, that was from the letter of a man who worked very closely with King James. He was actually one of his privy counselors, which means he knew. This is Admiral Thomas Howard, 1st Earl of Suffolk. Now you notice, you're going to notice something. Everybody who James has a relationship that he likes, or who has his secrets, he promotes them. He gives them jewelry and stuff like a sugar daddy. He promotes them and gives them status. Check it out. He was like a big time sugar daddy. Watch this, bro. You're going to love this next one. Here you go. Whoa. Uh-oh. Damn. I must have left that there. Damn. All right. Well, too bad. Anyway, I'll see what I can get. Under James I, Howard immediately fell into the king's favor, being appointed Lord something. Oh, damn. He was appointed a commission. If nobody can get that off of there. Knights of the Bath. Hey, yo, see if you can get that off of there.
No, you can't.
Oh, you can't,
that's
right?
In the present, that's in your PowerPoint.
Yeah, damn. All right. Anyway, let me see. Commissioner of the Earl appointed he became the chambermain. He became the Chamberlain, Lord Chamberlain. Yeah, this is why I had Chamberlain next. He promoted this dude. Sorry I left this book on here. It was a source. Yeah, I am. Damn, I'm really pissed off. But anyway, he promoted this guy. What's his name again? Thomas Howard. He promoted him to Lord Chamberlain and Privy Council, and appointed him the commissioner, and he knighted him as the Knights of the Bath. He was in charge of, in other words, he was in charge of all of King James' bedrooms. King James had a bunch of bedrooms. This was the man who was in charge of all of his bedrooms. He was in charge of his bathhouses. He knew all of King James' secrets, and that's why King James kept promoting him. If you could see underneath this book, you would see how many times he promoted him. What is a chamberlain? Because this is what he promoted him to. The Lord Chamberlain, or Lord Chamberlain of the household, is the senior officer of the royal household of the United Kingdom, overseeing departments which support and provide advice to the sovereign of the United Kingdom. In other words, he was a confidant. The Lord Chamberlain is always sworn of the Privy Council. In other words, you keep all of the king's secrets. It's usually a peer, and before 1782, the post was of cabinet rank. So this makes you probably the most important person in the kingdom next to the queen. This guy knew of all of King James' secrets. And he said in a letter James fell in love with a poor young Scotsman named Robert Carr. The king leans on Carr's arm, pinches his cheeks, smooths his ruffled garments, and when he looks upon Carr, directs his speech to others. Thomas Howard said that. That was the man closest to King James. Okay? That was the man closest to King James. Damn, I need a source. Well, we knew, okay, here. Well, the source here, this is a Wikipedia article that just lets you know who this man was. I don't think you need a whole bunch of sources to find out who he was. You do the research yourself. Here we go. Now, it says right here, the office dates, okay. Oh, the office dates from the Middle Ages when the king's chamberlain often acted as the king's spokesman in council and parliament. Okay? So in other words, he was the maid of the house. Okay? Here you go. Now check it out. James falls in love with Robert, becomes his sugar daddy. The book, a classic reprint series, A History of England by James Frank Bright. Let's look at it. That's the source. According to Thomas Howard, this man in this book is quoting the guy who was in charge of King James' household. This is the King Chamber. See it? This is one of his chambers that he used to visit. We're going to remember this chamber because we're going to talk about it in a few minutes. We're going to find out what kind of nasty, we're going to find out the connection. All right? We're going to find out, remember Carr? Don't forget Carr. This is the guy who they're talking about, who he fell in love with, him. Everything we're going to read about is between him and King James right now. You ready? Yeah, you're going to like this. Come on. Right here. According to Thomas Howard, 1st Earl of Suffolk, James fell in love with the young man, and as the years progressed, showered Carr with gifts. This is why it's called James Fall in Love with Robert, becomes a sugar daddy. This is a quote from the book, A History of England by James Frank Bright. The first of his favorites was Robert Carr, for whom the king acquired a peculiar affection while he was lying wounded from an accident at a tournament. Carr had been his page in Scotland, and the king, feeling a natural interest in him, visited him and what? Fell in love with his beauty. Already before the death of Cecil, the presents he received to win the king's favor had made him a fortune. His royal lover had made him Earl of Rochester and Knight of the Garter, meaning Knight of Lingerie. Okay? Okay? He put Carr in charge of his underwear. Robert Carr became the man who was in charge of King James' underwear. This is documented. Knight of the Garter. It was an official position. Okay? Let's go. A History of England by James Frank Bright. Look it up. Page 597. You want to hide something from a black man? Put it in the book. My son is not allowed to read anything written by King James. Okay? He got all that homo stink on that book. With all that Greek stuff in there. Let's see. Robert Carr. Remember Robert Carr? Right? Do you remember who Robert Carr is? I don't think you'll be paying attention. Who's Robert Carr? Huh? There he is. That's Robert Carr. See, I'll be mean in the classroom, Jack, because you better pay attention. Here we go, right here. Robert withdraws from James's bed and pisses James off. In 1615, James fell out with Carr. In a letter, James complained, among other matters, that Carr... Now, this is James talking. In a letter. This is not nobody. This is James talking in his letter. Can't let the man speak for himself. You believe him when he had the Bible translated, but you don't believe his letters. Idiot. He didn't even write the Bible. He had translators do that. He participated in the translation, supposedly, but you believe his translation of something somebody else supposedly wrote, but you don't believe him when he's writing himself. James said to Carr had been creeping back and withdrawing yourself from lying in my chamber, notwithstanding my many hundred times earnest soliciting you to the contrary. In other words, James had complained many times that Robert Carr was trying to get away from James's bedroom too much. And James had complained about it continuously. It's in the book. Read it. Homosexuality and Civilization by Lewis Crompton, page 387. Shakka didn't write this. Okay? James said it himself. There they are, Jonathan and David. All right? And all the rest of them Hebrew Israelites out there. Here we go. King James' own writings to Robert Carr. This is what King James said. You believe King James when he writes in the Bible, and it ain't even his writing, but you don't believe his own letters. Carr eventually ended the relationship, after which the king expressed his satisfaction in what? A letter to Carr. See, they could only communicate through letters at this time, folks, or through a messenger. But if you wanted it to be personal, you couldn't give it to the messenger because the messenger might go blab it to somebody else. You had to put it in a letter and close it with the king's seal. Remember that? Personal. Only one person could open it. And what did he say? This is what King James said to Robert Carr. I leave out of this reckoning your long creeping notwithstanding my many hundred times earnest soliciting you to the contrary. Remember that since I am king, all your being except your breathing and soul is from me. In other words, I own your body. Your body belongs to me. That's what King James was saying.
The next one. Page 23 of the same book, Basilicon Doron. This is a primary source. Instructions to be merciful with some exceptions. So King James instructed his son that ruled after him to be merciful, but there were certain exceptions where he told his sons not to be merciful on certain things. Let's read what it says. But as this severe justice of yours upon all offenses would be but for a time, as I have already said, so is there certain horrible crimes that you are bound in conscience never to forgive, such as witchcraft, willful murder, incest, especially the degrees of consanguinity, and sodomy. So King James instructed his sons never to forgive somebody that was a sodomite. My question to you brothers and sisters at home, did Shakka present this in his presentation? He said he presented all the information. Go back and watch his video. Did Shakka present this information where King James spoke against being a sodomite? The answer is no. Poisoning and false coin. So he instructed his son never to forgive somebody that was a sodomite. What is a sodomite? Somebody that's a faggot. He told his son never to forgive that. Why was this not presented in Shakka's presentation? Next slide. His instructions to his son on the proper attire for a king. Page 84, the Basilicon Doron. And by the way, what you see right there, you can buy at Barnes & Nobles. This is a primary source. This is the writings of the king himself. This is him speaking. Not somebody speaking on his behalf, but the king speaking. Page 84. He told his son, but especially eschew. The word eschew means to avoid. He told his son, but especially to eschew, meaning avoid, to be effeminate. Wait a minute. Why didn't Shakka present this? He told his son to avoid being effeminate in his clothes, meaning don't dress like a faggot. First, he told his son, don't forgive somebody that is a faggot. Now he's telling his son, you ain't even supposed to dress like a faggot. In your clothes. Don't be effeminate in your clothes. Or your perfuming, meaning don't smell like a faggot. This is somebody that was supposed to be a homosexual, but he's writing this to his son, really? Why was this not presented? Preening or such like. Next slide. Now his instructions on the proper language that a king should use. Page 86. In your language, be plain, honest, natural, comely, clean, and short. Eschew both the extremities as well as not using rustical corrupt lead as book language and pen and inkhorn terms, and least of all mignard and effeminate terms. Let's review. He told his son not to forgive somebody that was a practicing sodomite or homosexual. Then he went along and told his son not to. So you have 3 points. You shouldn't act like a faggot. You shouldn't dress like a faggot. And you shouldn't talk like a faggot or smell like a faggot. My question is, why didn't Shakka present this? But I thought y'all said Shakka presented all the information. That's what he said. That's why when I called in, he was a little stuck on stupid. That's my brother, but he was stuck on stupid. Next slide.
Okay? That's from the Letters of King James, the 1st and the 6th, edited by GPV Accra, University of California Press, 1984. Look it up. King James was a homosexual, and it was well known. I don't care if he was black or white. He was a homosexual. Here we go. King James, here we go. King James homosexuality is heavily documented at the collegiate level. See that, son? At the collegiate level. This is the book, Royal Family. This is another one of the sources, if you want to read his letters. Royal Family, Royal Lovers, King James of Scotland and England by David M. Bergeron, University of Missouri Press, 1991. Read it. These are professors and doctors and PhDs writing this stuff. They got to know their subject matter in and out to be able to publish. In fact, they have to publish like once a year, something like that. So this is it. You getting it. Y'all want to know, King James was a faggot. Uh-oh. The Duke gives it to King James and the Dookie. That was for you, son. That I figured you would like that. Hold up. The last of James' 3 close male friends was George Villiers, 1st Duke of Buckingham. the son of a Leicestershire knight. They had met in 1614, around the same time that the situation with Robert Carr was deteriorating. Buckingham was described as exceptionally handsome, intelligent, and honest. Right? In 1615, James knighted him, and 8 years later, he was the first commoner in more than a century to be elevated to a dukedom. So King James had a habit of taking these poor dudes that had nothing and making them earls. You feel me? And giving them gifts. Restoration of Agathorpe Hall, undertaken 2004-2008, revealed a previously unknown passage linking the bedchambers of James and his favorite, George Villiers. Sonetta. They found a passage, a secret passage from King James' bedroom to his bedroom. They recently found it. It's in the news. This faggot is still making news today. And the Hebrew Israelites on the corner want to say, he wasn't gay. Some people said that because they was mad because he kicked them out of their council. No. A secret passage between King James' bedroom and this man's bedroom ain't got nothing to do with somebody else being angry. The passage is there. Now, what he need a secret passage for? Why everybody else couldn't know about the passage? Because it's not written up. Nobody talked about it. So apparently they didn't know it was a secret. Right? Hold on. Now, here's the thing, though. The problem with this is that it's a Wikipedia article. So that don't give it much weight. So I said, let me go to the source. Remember that bedroom I showed you, the King Chambers? I said, remember that picture? That's Agathorpe. Agathorpe Hall near Oundle in Northamptonshire. So let's read what the original article says. This is not Wikipedia, people. Originally built in 1470 to 1480 by Sir Guy Wolston, it then sold to Sir Walter Midmay and stayed in his family for 350 years. Its stately apartments were where James I indulged in more commodious entertainment. That means bathroom type of entertainment. And princely recreation. Now, King James was not a prince. He was a king. So his princely recreation was with princes. That's a polite way of saying young men. Okay? With his favorite, George Villiers. Princely recreation with his favorite, George Villiers. Right there, that dude. Him. Okay? Okay? Later to become the Duke of Buckingham. He'll promote them. He'll be like, hey, you're an earl. Now you're a duke. Okay? Here we go. Workers uncovered a passage connecting the pair's bedchambers during the recent innovations. That's from an article called To the Manor Bought by Fiona Graham, BBC News. That's UK. That's the United Kingdom themselves. They ain't somebody in America on 125th Street. That's the UK News, BBC, telling you that these two faggots had a secret chamber between their bedrooms. King James and this man. It's only some dumb... Yeah, this is the UK right here. The BBC is the UK's British Broadcasting Corporation. They're telling you in the article that King James indulged in more commodious entertainment and princely recreation with his favorite, George Villiers, who he shared uncovered a passage connecting the pair's bedchambers during the recent renovations. They would keep their sexual affairs to themselves. It was their private little secret that they loved. It made them feel like they had something that nobody else knew about. You understand? Here you go. All right? So, yes, do not come to me with King James. I don't care if he's black. Okay? Here you go. Queen James. James's sexual orientation was so widely known that Sir Walter Raleigh joked about it in public, saying King Elizabeth had been succeeded by Queen James. That's from the book The Lion and the Throne, Catherine D. Bowen. Right? Who is she? She won the U.S. National Book Award for nonfiction for this book right here. Won the U.S. National Book Award for nonfiction right? There it is right there, The Lion and the Throne, the life and times of Sir Edward Coke. And the book wasn't even about King James. It was about someone else. A biography of the prominent lawyer of Elizabeth in England, right? In addition, Miss Bowen received the 1957 Philadelphia Award and the 1962 Women's National Book Association Award. Her last book, Family Portrait, received critical acclaim and was a Literary Guild selection. During her lifetime, she was a recipient of numerous awards, including the Philadelphia Award. This is a serious author. This ain't somebody writing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's a serious author. The Lion and the Throne. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of academics didn't like her because she wasn't academically trained. However, apparently her literature must have been the shit because she was winning all of these awards. Okay, you don't win awards because you can't write. And she was writing nonfiction. Okay, she got some fiction as well too, but she's writing nonfiction mainly. Okay, Divine Right of Kings. King James I was a known homosexual who murdered his young lovers and victimized countless heretics and women. His cruelty was justified by his Divine Right of Kings, James I, by Otto J. Scott. Now, Scott was a racist white Christian who didn't like black people, but he was a Christian. But as a Christian, he didn't have a problem with telling the truth about the man who wrote his Bible. So if he ain't got a problem with telling the truth about it, he's a Christian, why you got a problem with it? He was a faggot. Accept it. He loved Robert Carr. He loved George Villiers, right? And his cousin, the Duke of Lexington. Duke of Lennox. Okay? Lennox, you know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. I'm sorry, people, but the Divine Right of Kings, you see, the Divine Right of Kings made these kings of England do some really messed up shit. How many people have seen Braveheart? Remember Braveheart? The Divine Right of King entitled the king to have what was called first nights. First nights meant if you got married to a woman, the king had the privilege of having sex with her first. That was part of the Divine Right of Kings. But James used it to have sex with young men. Okay? Just letting you know. His cruelty was justified by his Divine Right of Kings. Documented. We almost to the end. Check it out. I think we got like two more. Right? This is from the book Royal Panoply, Brief Lives of English Monarchs. Carolee Erickson. The last book, by the way, was James First by Otto J. Scott, where it talked about him being a known... They didn't say he was a homosexual. He said he was a known homosexual, which means it was not a secret. Okay? How you going to tell people from their own country what they know or don't know? And you over here on 125th Street trying to tell us what's true and what's not. You sound stupid. Okay? Here we go. Royal Panoply, Brief Lives of English Monarchs. Carolee Erickson. When he revealed a sexual preference for men, falling in love with his cousin Esmond Stewart and elevating him to a position. See the pattern? He falls in love with these guys, then he elevates them and gives them status. When he revealed a sexual preference for men, falling in love with his cousin Esmond Stewart and elevating him to a position of authority on the royal council, some of his nobles kidnapped James and held him captive, banishing Stewart and controlling James' every move. After nearly a year, James escaped but continued to resent his jailers. After he began to rule on his own behalf, at 17, he made it a priority to bring the turbulent Scots nobles under control. As he aged, James indulged in his preference for handsome men, living apart from his wife. Okay? His doting fondness was part paternal, part erotic. He called his favorite George Villiers, the one who he had to pass the secret bedchamber with, a bed passage with, he called him sweet child and wife, and referred to himself as your dear dad and husband. That's King James. Don't listen to no black Hebrew Israelite tell you some bullshit he don't know nothing about. This is the documented evidence. Okay? Okay. All right? Listen to your brother. Okay? It says his doting fondness was part paternal, part erotic. He called his favorite, George Villiers, sweet child and wife, and referred to himself as your dear dad and husband. Damn, I'm your father and your husband. Gee whiz. But to his courtiers, the sight of the aging, paunchy, balding monarch, who according to one court observer had a tendency to drool leaning on his paramours, was utterly repellent. The first of the king's minions was who? Robert Carr, groom of the what? Bedchamber, the chamberlain, who the king elevated to Earl of Somerset and appointed Lord Chamberlain. After 6 years of favors and royal gifts, Carr was brought low and accused of murder and sent away from court. It was basically because Carr was getting too close to King James' wife. The second and greatest royal favorite, the extraordinarily handsome George Villiers, rose from a cupbearer to gentleman of the bedchamber, and ultimately to Earl of Buckingham. So it's always the exact same pattern with these young men. First, they would become in charge of his bedroom, where he would have sex with them. Then they would know his secrets, right? And then he would elevate them to earls. It's the same pattern over and over again. Nothing is changing here. Like the pattern in the Bible with them stripping their clothes off and prophesying and kissing each other and weeping and getting erections and all this other craziness, right? Here we go. He said, oh, check this out. The second greatest royal favorite, the extraordinarily handsome George Villiers, rose from cupbearer to gentleman of the bedchamber and ultimately to Earl of Buckingham. And this is what George said. I love the Earl of Buckingham more than anyone else, James announced to his counselors, and more than you who are here assembled. I'll read that again. I love the Earl of Buckingham more than anyone else. That includes his wife. Remember, your love for me surpasses the love of even a woman? Same shit here. Now you know how I got in the Bible. Because of King James, right? More than you who are here assembled. He compared his love for the Earl, here he goes. James compared his love for the Earl to Jesus' affection for the beloved disciple John, the one who Jesus lied down with. Remember? Right? Jesus Christ, this is what James said. Jesus Christ did the same, the king said, and therefore I cannot be blamed. Christ had his John, I have my George. That's what King James said. That is a quote. Okay? With such pronouncement, King James seemed to have reached a new level of outrage, especially when he compounded his offense in the view. And this quote, by the way, is a very famous quote made by King James. This is not something secret. Everybody knows he said this. Okay? That's something that's common knowledge. All right? Oh, and by the way, stop giving King James so much credit. The idea to write the translation was not even his. It was Robert Reynolds from Oxford University, a Puritan. So stop the stupidness. In fact, Dr. Robert Reynolds is called the father of the King James Version among scholars who know they shit, you morons. Okay? Here we go. So, he compared his love. Look him up, Dr. Robert Reynolds, King James translation. It was his idea, not King James. All right? He compared his love for the Earl to Jesus' affection and for the beloved disciple, John. Jesus Christ did the same, the king said, and therefore I cannot be blamed. Christ had his John, I have my George. Okay, with your secret bedroom chamber. With such pronouncement, King James seemed to reach a new level of outrage, especially when he compounded his offense in the view of many by heaping Buckingham, Lord Buckingham, with costly jewels, lands, and lucrative offices. That's from the book Royal Panoplies, Brief Lives of the English Monarchs by Carolee Erickson, Columbia University. Okay? Now, look, this is Villiers. He made him the Earl of Buckingham. Same thing he did for Carr, was giving him money and gave him position. That's what he did for Buckingham. Same pattern. Your dude was not only a faggot, he was also a pederast and he was a sugar daddy. This is the documentation. This is all collegiate documentation. All right? I'm not quoting some I don't know who you would read, but this is all out of the university. So if you're going to go to college and study, this is what you're going to learn. Just letting you know. Okay? King James, this is another source right here. King James and Letters of Homoerotic Desire by David M. Bergeron. King James Letters of Homoerotic Desire. There, that's one other source you can read by David Bergeron. Okay? Here we go. Now, this is where we're coming to the end. You're going to love this. I picked this ending for you. I kept you in mind, Sonetta. King James was black. No problem. King James, the first homosexual integrationist, because that's what he was. All of his lovers were white. All of them. They were all white men. You say King James was black. I'm not arguing against that. Have I said he wasn't? No. But this was his lover right here. All right? George Villiers. Okay? That was his lover. Who was his other lover? Let's look at him. Where he at? Get over here, buddy. Robert Carr. That's his other lover. So your black King James, and that was his first one he fell in love with, his cousin, Esma. Okay? None of them are black. Those are all real portraits. I'm sorry. None of them are black. So I have no problem with King James being black. But the reality of it is that if he was black, then guess what? The reality of it is, that's what he was about. He loved white men. Okay? That's what he was about. There's King James. King James, the first homosexual integrationist. We almost done. Hold on. Boom, because it's nothing new. See, you want to act like King James doing that would be something new. Or maybe it was new in his time, but unfortunately, didn't Beard Rustin do the same thing? Huh? Beard Rustin, and Beard Rustin live in Harlem. Y'all don't know who Beard Rustin was? Beard Rustin worked very closely with Martin Luther King, helped to write his speeches and helped to organize. Let's read about him. Here's a little white boyfriend. Walter Neagle met Beard Rustin one afternoon on a Times Square street corner in 1977. Neagle was 27 and Rustin was 65. All right? Yes, you didn't know that? Yeah. Rustin grew up in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. That's why I say keep your black sons out of these churches. Check it out. We almost on the very last one. Check it out. Yeah, Rustin grew up in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, AME, and helped to organize the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Remember that? Ambassadors of Christ, Israelite United in Christ. I don't do that because this is what it produces. All right? Check it out. Now this is what you don't know about Beard Rustin. Look up Beard Rustin. That's his name, Bayard Rustin. Beard Rustin was very influential in the civil rights. But see, y'all don't know what the civil rights is really all about. You think it was about black people. Nah, dude. It was about homosexuals. Watch, we're going to see. At least for him it was. He wanted to get the black thing out of the way so he could move on to what he really cared about. He also testified on behalf of New York State's gay rights bill. In 1986, he gave a speech called "The New Niggers Are Gay." Now you know why gay people are always trying to equate their plight with the plight of being black. That nigga right there is the one that started that. He's the one that started that. He gave a speech called "The New Niggers Are Gay," in which he asserted, today blacks are no longer the litmus paper or the barometer of social change. Blacks are in every segment of society, and there are laws that help to protect them from racial discrimination. The new niggers are gays. It is in this sense that gay people are the new barometer for social change. The question of social change should be framed with the most vulnerable group in mind. Gay people. That's from his speech called "Gays Are the New Niggers." That's your boy Beard Rustin, who lives right here in Harlem, I'm ashamed to say, with his white boyfriend Walter Neagle. And you need to read Walter Neagle's statements about what he said about being Beard's lover, because he was a white boy who was into civil rights too. Okay? Real talk. Okay? So now, final analysis. Beard Rustin and King James, two black men who both love white men. Literally. Historical reality. Historical reality. Spare me your Sunday school pom-pom churches. I don't want to hear all that shit. Okay? Last one. Hold on. Last one is right here. Because now we're going to bring it up to today. They want you, and no, they even look alike. Look at them. Don't they look alike? King James and Beard Rustin, they right. King James was black because he looked just like Beard Rustin. But hold on, now we're going to bring it up to today. You ready? Here it comes, Sonetta, for the boom. Because I know you're a football fan. Boom! Your boy Michael Sam, NFL athlete, doing a King James and a George Villiers and a Beard Rustin and a Walter Neagle. Their rooms are probably connected as well. Nothing is new. King James again. There it is, people. Y'all think, come on, man. Yeah, I'm not stupid. King James, and this right here, Beard Rustin had his, and King James had his. There you go, Michael Sam. That's it. Tell the truth, because this is not Photoshop, people. This is real. All right? And he probably going to be a Hebrew Israelite before you know it. Might be already one. There you go. Oh, you also Google the Queen James Bible. There's a group of, somebody went, I don't know who did it, but they went into the Bible. They got the correct translations, right? And this is what they put together, the Queen James Bible. You already saw the other author referred to him as Queen James. So that's why they made the Queen James Bible. Just Google it, and you're going to see how the translations are altered in a more truthful way. Because they're showing all the homosexuality in that book. So I'm going to get that copy for you, Gabar, right there. All right? Here you go. Oh, and this is the rainbow. They got the gay rainbow on your text. They got all kind of gay shit up in there. See that? They got the little gay text. That's for the Hebrew Israelites and these Christians and all this, David and Jonathan kissing and stripping naked, and the gay Bible, you can buy it on Amazon.com. There you go. All right? Because that's tell the truth. Get the better translation. I'm all about truth, my. Tell me what's really going on with y'all. I want to really know. We just say in the Kemetic community, no thank you. That's all. We just saying no thank you. We're not saying we hate you. We saying no thank you. We don't want to deal with that faggotry. It's our choice. We're not saying we hate gay people. I'm not saying I hate gay people, right? I'm not saying it at all. I don't like people who lie about their scripture. You feel me? Here you go. Man, woman, and child. That's how we roll. That's how we get down. That's what we about. Man, woman, here you go. Man, woman, child. That's it. Asar, Aset, Heru. That's what we about. If you got a problem with that, I don't know what to tell you. See, we're not going to take away the woman and put in the mysterious Holy Ghost because you don't even want it to be God the Son, God the Father, and some spiritual shit that or some invisible thing, some spook shit. You feel me? Nah, pa. We ain't rocking like that. Hotep, number 11 of the 42 confessions of Goddess Ma'at. I have not committed adultery. I have not lain with men. All right? That's on my mama. That's what it is. Whoops. There it is. Hotep.
Now, names that you will never hear mentioned by people that speak about King James being a homosexual. Let's go. You have a man by the name of Peter Heinlein. Who is Peter Heinlein? Peter Heinlein was a contemporary of King James. He lived during the time of King James. This dude said that the king wasn't a faggot. How come Shaka didn't present that? Sir William Sanderson, another contemporary of the king, who said the king was not a homosexual. Why didn't Shaka present that? You have Bishop Godfrey Goodman, another contemporary who lived during the time of King James, that said the accusations were false. Why didn't Shaka present that? Then you have Sir Anthony A. Wood. Listen, brothers and sisters, I'm giving y'all sources. Please go and check this out. You have Sir Anthony A. Wood, who also was a contemporary of King James, that said the man wasn't homosexual. You will never hear somebody that teaches that King James is homosexual mention any of these names. And finally, you have King James himself, who we just read in the Basilicon Doron, who spoke against homosexuality. And notice, like the title says, names never mentioned. Notice our brother, Shaka Ahmose, never mentioned King James in the Basilicon Doron. I ask you, brothers and sisters, why is that?
Let me ask you a question. How do you explain the secret passage in his room leading to, you're going to go in?
Oh, well, it's not actually on his PowerPoint because, like I said, this is a preview to my PowerPoint presentation. I already explained this to Shaka because Anthony Weldon was one, because George Villas was one of his bodyguards. That was one of the closest people to him, and there were 8 attempts on his life in his time. There were 8 attempts on the king's life. So that passage was a way for the king to escape in case somebody came to try to kill him. That's a fact. And I told Shaka that, and guess what? If you go back, you watch the video, before I was finished speaking, Shaka said it because he knew where I was going, because he knew I was right. Okay, let's continue. Instead, we are given names such as Anthony Weldon, Francis Osborne, and Sir Edward Peyton. These are the names of people that said King James is a homosexual. You will always see these names in yellow, but you'll never see the names in red. Why is that? Okay? And others who had malice towards the king. This creates an unbalanced and biased view on a subject. In other words, it's called biased scholarship. Next slide. Now, this is one of the books that Shaka used. Guess what, brothers and sisters? If Shaka's an honest man, he's going to tell you. At the debate, I had this book with me. This was a book that Shaka presented in his presentation. He told us that this is a source that he used to prove that King James is a homosexual. I'm going to bet money he never even read the book. Guess what, brothers and sisters? Brother Danyaahla has the book. And I brought it to the debate and I showed it to him. I said, Shaka, you know I got this book, right? Here's what the book says. James I, the Fool as King by Otto J. Scott. Okay, concerning Esme Stewart. Remember that? Shaka said that Esme Stewart was King James's first lover. That was his first cousin. Yes. He said Esme Stewart was King James's first lover. Let's see what this says, right? There are many reasons that James was close to Esme Stewart. Question, before I continue. How many reasons did Shaka present in his presentation? 1. He presented you 1 reason. He said that King James and him had sex. That was it. But the author in the book that Shaka used, I didn't use this book. I didn't present the source. Shaka presented the source. It says there are many reasons. Question, why didn't Shaka present us many reasons? He presented us 1 reason. There are many reasons James was close to Esme Stewart. Let's go through this and let's see how many of these sources that Shaka actually told you, brothers and sisters, about. First reason, his social graces. Second reason that he was close with his cousin, his contact with the French government, which brought gold to James's aid. Did Shaka tell y'all about that? No. Why was he close with Esme Stewart? Because Esme Stewart was close with the French, and the French gave the king gold. Shaka didn't tell y'all about that, right? He just said he was a faggot. Let's keep going. And the fact that Esme was captain of the king's bodyguards. Why was the king having bodyguards? Because there were attempts made on his life over and over again. So the man that's guarding your life, you ain't going to be close to him? Come on, man. Let's be real. He goes on to say, all this is overshadowed by the fact that James disliked girls. In other words, Otto J. Scott, the source that Shaka used, disregards the fact that Esme Stewart was close with the French. Disregard the fact of the man's social graces. Disregard the fact that the man was a bodyguard to King James. He's going to look over all that and say, oh, well, King James disliked girls. Next slide. Monarchs of Scotland by Stuart J. Ross. This is from a book, right? Regarding James's affection towards Esme Stewart. This is another source that Shaka didn't bring out, but I'm bringing out. Page 113. And this sort of behavior, because Shaka spoke about the fact that James had affection towards Esme Stewart, and sometimes he would kiss his cousin on the cheek. That was his cousin, right? Were typical of James all his life, and has led to be being labeled as homosexuality. Has led to being labeled as homosexual. However, there is no concrete evidence to support the allegation that public petting was followed by intimate relations in private. This is from another book. Why didn't Shaka present this? This is the counterbalance to what he said. You have authors that are letting you know that there's really no historical evidence that shows that James was affectionate towards Esme Stewart. He was a homosexual. No references whatsoever. Page 115. James fathered 8 children, which is not bad for someone that was supposed to be a homosexual. So if James was a homosexual, why was he sleeping with his wife so much to the point where he had 8 children? How come that was not presented? Okay? Page 119. Few kings have been more unjustly maligned. The carpings of xenophobic contemporaries about his physical appearance and personal behavior have been accepted as face value. In other words, the information that's been presented by authors like Otto J. Scott has been presented at face value without the balance, the counterbalance that lets you know that this man fathered 8 children. Now, every time that you sleep with your wife, you don't get her pregnant every time you sleep with her. Right. So in order to have 8 children, that means you sleeping with your wife all the goddamn time to have 8 children. So how the hell is this man a homosexual and he's sleeping with his woman so much he's having 8 children? How come Shaka didn't talk about that? This is about balance, man. What was presented to you, brothers and sisters at home, was biased scholarship. Real scholarship would have presented this and what he presented, to give you brothers and sisters at home a chance to decide for yourself. But what the brother Shaka decided to do was present one side of the coin and hope you brothers and sisters fell for it, except there was your brother Danyaahla that stood around and said, oh, this brother's a goddamn liar, man. Next slide. The Royal House, a biography of the Royal Stuarts. This is another book that our brother did not present. So I'm going to present it for him, okay? Page 134 concerning his wife, James wrote this. Now remember, Otto J. Scott said that James disliked girls. He disliked girls, right? Let's read what this says. And the youngest princess was a gay, good-looking girl. Let's stop right there. The word gay is newspeak, okay? In our day and time, the word gay means homosexual. That's newspeak. If you don't know what newspeak is, learn something. Go look it up. It means that a definition has been expanded. But in the 1600s, the word gay did not mean homosexual, but actually meant happy. So it says the word and, the youngest princess was a gay or happy, good-looking girl. Barely 16. So when people were telling King James about this woman, she was 16 years old. Now we got to stop here for a second. We got to get on Kemet. I got to get on Kemet. So we got to stop here for a second. So I turn the camera around, man. Turn the camera around so the brothers and sisters can see me, right? I know y'all see that word 16 up there, right? Now, King James was a Hebrew Israelite, a black Hebrew Israelite. You see the word 16 up there. So you say, oh, my God. King James committed pedophilia. He fell in love with his wife when she was 16. Question, how old were the women in Egypt when they were getting married? Because my research has shown that the women in Egypt were 12 years old when you were marrying them. Y'all talk about GMS, but the women in Egypt were 12 years old. I got sources on that. You guys were marrying women as soon as they started their menstrual period. Because Egyptian women only lived to be what, about 34, 35 years old? So you guys were marrying girls at 12 years old, but then you talk about GMS, puke Israelites and pedophiles. But you goddamn Egyptians were marrying girls at 12 years old, but y'all ain't talking about that, right? Anyway, let's get back to the PowerPoint. Okay? Now, it says here, and the youngest princess was a happy, good-looking girl, barely 16, and the more James heard of her attractions, the more resolute he became to marry her. This doesn't sound like what Otto J. Scott spoke about, who is Shakka's reference. He said the more he heard about her beauty is the more resolute he became to marry her. He met Anne and fell in love with the reality that did not disappoint his imagination, meaning everything he heard about her beauty, when he saw her, he lived up to that beauty. That don't sound like a faggot to me. Right. Keep reading on. Right. Their affection, moreover, was no brief transient emotion, but endured as a kindly intimacy, if no more than that, until 7 children were born. So you have some scholars that say that he had 7 children. You have some scholars that say he had 8 children. My point is, if you have 7 or 8 children, you know how often you sleeping with your woman? That's right. You know how frequently you sleeping with your woman? And this is a man that you guys are saying was a homosexual. Why was this information not presented by Shakka? Sure. Next slide. James I by Christopher Durston, okay? Now we're going to get into one of the sources that our brother Shakka brought out, right? Otto J. Scott's book, which is endorsed by the National Catholic Reporter. We got to stop right there. I got to talk about that. Now, we know that King James, in the introduction to the Bible, he spoke about the Roman Catholic Church, how the Pope was against him. The Pope was always against the king. If you don't know history, then I got bad news for you. The Pope was always against the king. Scott's book, which Shakka used as a reference, is endorsed by the Catholic Church. That means that reference that Shakka used is garbage. Because the Roman Catholic Church endorses the book that Shakka used. And guess what? King James was enemies with the Roman Catholic Church his whole life. Let's read the source. Otto J. Scott's book, which is endorsed by the National Catholic Reporter, and which Shakka references, relies heavily on David H. Wilson's book, James VI and the First. Okay? David H. Wilson's book relies on the testimony of 2 of King James's biggest enemies, Anthony Weldon and Francis Osborne. I got to stop again. I got to drop it on y'all. You got to pay attention. Stay with Danyaahla. Stay with Brother Danyaahla. See, I know y'all brothers say, you Hebrew Israelites that come out of One West, you don't know no history, then you don't know me.
That's right.
You don't know me.
That's right.
I know history. That's the point. Okay? Let's read that again. Wilson's book, James VI and the First, by David H. Wilson, relies on the testimony of 2 of King James's biggest enemies, Anthony Weldon and Francis Osborne. I got to stop. Let's run down the list. You have Anthony Weldon and Francis Osborne, both of whom were kicked out of the king's court by King James. You have an author by the name of David H. Wilson that writes a book, and he bases his findings of King James being a homosexual on 2 of King James's biggest enemies. From that book, you get Otto J. Scott's book, who relies on a man who relied on King James's enemies. And from that, you get Shakka's presentation. And you brothers and sisters are at home running along with that like that was true. That it was garbage, man. Let's go to page 3 of this book by Christopher Durston. The king's reputation reached a nadir in 1956 with the publication of D.H. Wilson's King James VI and the First. Now check this out, right? Speaking about the author. He thoroughly disliked and disapproved of King James. In other words, the author that wrote this book, he didn't like King James to begin with. So when he went and did his research, he went to guys that didn't like King James. And all these books that you're reading about, that you're quoting, are based on people that didn't like the king to begin with. And you talking about you used all the sources and your history is factual? Get the hell out of here, man. Let's keep going. It says, only during the last 25 years that historians have belatedly begun to emancipate themselves, meaning free themselves. Historians have begun to free themselves from Weldon and present a more balanced picture of James. What does it mean by a more balanced picture? Meaning that they stopped listening to authors that are basing their books on Anthony Weldon because they realized that Anthony Weldon got his behind kicked out of the king's court. That's why he wrote that King James was a homosexual. And you being a scholar in 2015 are bringing out information that comes from a damn Anthony Weldon talking about you used all that scholarship. Get the hell out of here, man. Next slide. Sir Anthony Weldon is the main source, not the rap crew, but the main source of the homosexual allegations against King James. I don't care where you get it from. I don't care if you wrote a book called Homosexuals in History. All that stuff is garbage. It all goes back to Anthony Weldon or Francis Osborne or Edward Payton. Sir Anthony Weldon is the main source of the homosexual allegations against King James. But what do contemporaries, meaning people that lived during the time, have to say about Anthony Weldon? That you want to read a book by Otto Scott. You want to read a book that relies on Otto Scott. What do historians say about that clown? Sir Anthony Weldon, a well-known racist of his time who hated Scots, which King James was a Scot, and King James, right? It says Anthony Weldon wrote a book full of racist insults towards Scotland. The name of the book is called The Court and Character of King James, which was written after King James and his son were assassinated. Next slide. 1650, a curious date. It says the book The Court and Character of King James, which was written by Anthony Weldon, a well-known racist and an enemy to King James. The book, The Court and the Character of King James, was published in the year 1650. That's a very important date, brothers and sisters. 1650 was 1 year after King James's son, Charles I, was tried and executed in 1649. Let me explain. In other words, what this is saying is that Anthony Weldon was a goddamn faggot. What does that mean? Meaning that he waited for King James to be dead. And he waited for King James's son, Charles I, to be dead. And once these guys were dead and there was no more threat of him being put to death for libel or lying, then he said in 50. Sorry about that.
Good.
I'll wait for you. You got it?
No, I can't see over there.
Come over here so you can see.
No, good.
I can see it better here. Right. So I'm going to read this again. Right. In the year 1650, a curious date, the book, The Court and Character of King James, was published in the year 1650, 1 year after King James's son, Charles I, was tried and executed. That was some faggot shit. In other words, Anthony Weldon, the homosexual faggot, scaredy cat, lying idiot that he was, waited until King James was already dead. He waited until King James's son was already dead. And at that point, he wrote a book called The Court and Character of King James and said, oh, by the way, he was a homosexual. But wait until he was dead. Animosity against the monarchy was at a fever pitch. There was great disillusionment with the monarchical form of government to the point of murdering the lawful king. Next slide.
I'm going to tell you something, Brother Danyaahla. You know what would go good with that slide right there, what you talked about?
Mm-hmm.
They waited till he was dead. What would go good with this is you should have put Malcolm there, Malcolm X, because they waited till Malcolm died to say he was a homosexual. So check this out.
Yes, sir.
100 years later on, people going to be talking about Malcolm X was gay. You see what I'm saying? So
that's a beautiful point, Senator. I'm gonna take it a step further. Not only are they saying Malcolm X was gay, you have certain people that are teaching that Malcolm X was a goddamn CIA agent. He was working with the government and all that. But they wasn't saying that when Malcolm was alive. They say the same thing about Khalid Muhammad. All of a sudden, man, he was an agent. He was this. He was that. But they wasn't saying that when the man was alive. This is what happens. Next slide. Let's keep going. All right. This is a book called James the First by his contemporaries, by Robert Ashton. You know what contemporaries mean? Meaning that people that were living during the same time as King James. The same time. Let's see if they were saying he was homosexual, right? This is page 20. Entertaining though they may be, the treatises of writers such as Sir Anthony Weldon and Francis Osborne are characterized chiefly by the author's spiteful and indiscriminate animus against the king. They are represented here not because of their value as accurate accounts, which is negligible. In other words, the author of this book is saying the reason why he even mentioned Anthony Weldon was because Anthony Weldon made the accusation, but they're not represented in his book as accurate accounts because everything that Anthony Weldon said was not accurate. In other words, you have a lot of scholars, as I'm showing, that's giving information that's saying the information that was put out about King James is a lie. But again, our brother Shakka made a presentation and he told you he gave you all the information. So where's all this information I'm putting up? Was that in his presentation? Go back and watch it and answer that question. Was this in Shaka's presentation? Next slide.
Brother Tazoriak just texted in and said, you killing that shit on
Let's go. Let's go. That's my brother, man. Big up to the Captain Tazariak, right? We have another book right here called Britain's Solomon, James I and his Six and his Three Kingdoms by Maurice Lee Jr., page 309 to page 910. This is what this author said. Historians can and should ignore the venomous caricature of the king's person and behavior drawn by Anthony Weldon. Let's stop and let's do a recap again. You had an author by the name of David H. Wilson. From David H. Wilson, we get the author Otto J. Scott, which our brother Shaka quoted. But David H. Wilson's work was based on the work of Anthony Weldon, meaning it was biased. So when Shaka did his presentation, he should have did a little more research. If he did a little more research, he'd have been like, you know what? I'm going to leave this book out. Because this author's book is based on another author who went to biased scholars to get his scholarship. I don't remember seeing this in Shaka's presentation. If I'm wrong, y'all brothers and sisters, please tell me at what point, give me the minute point, give me the timestamp when Shaka brought this information out. Next slide. Okay? This is a book by James I by Christopher Durston, another author. Okay, page 2. It says, this poisonous piece of literary revenge. So in other words, what Anthony Weldon wrote was revenge against the king. Why is that? Now I'm going to give you brothers and sisters some history, right? You had Anthony Weldon that was a member of the king's court. He was also known as the clerk of the green cloth. All right? Anthony Weldon was kicked out of the king's court by King James for writing that book, The Court and Character of King James. He was kicked out of court. So when he was kicked out of court, that's when he decided, after King James was dead, after King James's son was dead, that's when he decided to write the book, The Court and Character of King James. It was revenge against the king because he was mad about the way that he was kicked out of court. So this is what this author says. Tell me if you saw this in Shaka's presentation. It says page 2. This poisonous piece of literary revenge was to do profound and lasting damage to James's reputation, as it became the prime source. Let me say that again. It became the prime source. Let me say that one more time. It became the prime source from many subsequent historical assessments, meaning that a lot of scholars, when they wrote about King James being a homosexual, they based it on this garbage that was written out of revenge by somebody that got their behind kicked out of court, whose authors failed to make sufficient allowances for the obvious bias of the people that wrote those pieces about King James being homosexual. Obvious bias. Damn it! I don't remember seeing that in Shaka's presentation. Next slide, man.
You killing them, Ak, you killing them.
Now, I don't know about that yet, man. This is only 20 slides, man. I got 100. Listen, I got 100 slides. This is only 20. This is only 20. This is only 20. All right?
Say that one more time.
More contemporaries and historians speak. Peter Heinlein. I mentioned this guy before. This is somebody that lived during the time of King James. In his book, Examen Historicum, he dismisses Anthony Weldon's work as infamous libel. Anthony Weldon's work was quoted by David H. Wilson, which is quoted by Otto J. Scott, which is quoted by Shakka Ahmose, which means it's garbage. Okay, next one. The Dictionary of National Biography. I'm giving y'all sources. Everybody's like at home like, where's your sources? The source is in red. Read. The Dictionary of National Biography characterizes Weldon's book as a collection of slanderous gossip about the two kings. What two kings? James and his son. And their ministers and their favorites. I'm going to tell you something. It's ain't in this presentation, but every king of England and Scotland and Ireland and Germany and everywhere else had their favorites, meaning people that they was close to. It had nothing to do with being a homosexual. Stop it. Next slide. They're going to keep going. Sir William Sanderson refutes Weldon in his Aulicus Concarnari and his complete histories of the lives and reigns of Mary Queen of Scots and her son James I. Bishop Godfrey Goodman stated, I have never, and again, Bishop Godfrey Goodman is somebody that lived during the time of King James. He was a contemporary. So if you're presenting stuff that people during James's time was whispering that he was a homosexual, I hear you, Shakka, but people during James's time was also saying he was not a homosexual. Where was this in your presentation? Bishop Godfrey Goodman stated, I have never read a more malicious-minded author, nor any who has such poor and mean observations. Get out of here. Next slide, man. We ain't got to talk much. Next slide. Sir Edward Peyton, another of James's enemies, another person upon whom modern-day scholars base their homosexual allegations on. This is Sir Edward Peyton, was recommended for removal from court by George Villiers. We got to stop right there. Because George Villiers is somebody that Shakka accused King James of being lovers with. But now we're seeing something very heavy right here. Edward Peyton was recommended for removal from the king's court by George Villiers. In other words, George Villiers said, James, we got to get this guy out of here. So what do you think Edward Peyton did? He was mad about that. So later on, he came with some garbage talking about George Villiers being a homosexual. That's where that allegation comes from. How come Shakka didn't mention this? Let me stop. Let me keep reading. After this disgrace, Peyton was an avid enemy of Villiers and the whole court. In other words, Peyton didn't just like Villiers, but he disliked the whole court, which includes the king. He sided with Parliament in the English Civil War against Charles I, who was James's son. In the year 1652, he wrote The Divine Catastrophe of the Stuarts. This work was denounced at the time. When he made the allegations of the king being a homosexual, this work was denounced by Sir Anthony Wood in his book Athenae Oxyneus as a most despicable, libelous book full of lies, mistakes, and nonsense. This work was reprinted in the year 1752 by William Bowyer Jr. and Charles Davis, which were taken into custody by the House of Commons on the charge of publishing seditious slander. So when you quote somebody that's quoting Edward Peyton, that's seditious slander. But you presented all the facts. I don't remember seeing this, and I watched the whole video. Man, damn it, I watched it 5 times. I watched the damn video 5 times. Because I had to put timestamps on everything that Shakka said, because I said I'm going to cut him on that. I'm going to cut him on that. I'm going to cut him on that. And I'm going to cut him on that. Next slide. Stop. Get the hell out of here, man. Is that it? All right, the rest of the presentation, y'all brothers and sisters, y'all gonna get that, man. We about to do a presentation, man. I'm gonna go into George Villiers. I'm gonna go into Robert Carr, because Shakka mentioned all of them. I'm gonna go into all that. But that's just showing you, that's just a preview to show you brothers and sisters that the brother didn't present everything, man. That was biased scholarship.
And that right there,
that was biased.
Powerful rebuttal. That was a powerful rebuttal. I'm saying it live on the air. Y'all hear me? I know some of y'all gonna say, man, Sarnetta Don King. Sarnetta Don King. But man, listen, that was a powerful rebuttal right there, man. You did an excellent job. And I'm gonna keep asking you this, man. Why the hell they didn't let you speak at the debate, brother? What the hell is wrong? And Polite brought up King James.
I know he did.
Why they ain't let you speak, bro?
Well, hey, I'm going to say the Most High blessed polite, man. The Most High blessed polite that I didn't get a chance to speak. But I want to big up my brother Hashar, because I'm going to tell you something. When Hashar was up there speaking, Hashar tried to hand me the microphone. So I wanted to put that out there because I hear brothers and sisters saying that there was some type of conspiracy, that they didn't let me speak. That's a lie. I want to put that out there. The brother Hashar passed me the mic, and I turned the mic down. And the reason why I turned the mic down is because it was in the middle of the presentation that him and Nasi were bringing, and their brothers was in the spirit. And I didn't realize that we wasn't going to have a second round at the time because of time constraints. So I figured to myself, like, listen, in the second round, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to spank polite. And I want to say one last thing, and I'm going to sit my ass down because I'm pretty sure, I'm not looking at the comment board, but I'm pretty sure you got my haters. You got my haters out there. But to the people that's hating on Brother Danyaahla, that's saying I'm full of shit, I want you to go and I want you to check my sources. I want you to check my sources. You can hate on me all day, but my source is wrong. Is the information that I presented, is it wrong? I know y'all love Shakka. I'm going to tell you something. Shakka's my brother, man. And every time that brother see me, he showed me mad love. Mad love. And much love to that brother. I'm not one of them brothers that's going to tear that brother down. Mad love to that brother. So I'm not hating. You see what I'm saying? But him and me, we laugh and joke, but we go back and forth, man. He didn't present none of the stuff that I said. You can hate me all day, but ask me which one of the sources I put up is wrong. You see what I'm saying? The brother passed me the mic. I had an opportunity to speak. I didn't speak because the brothers were in the spirit. But don't worry, I got some fire for y'all. And one last thing. Y'all didn't see my presentation on King James being black. Because I know niggas get all shook up like Elvis Presley about that thing, man. Brother saying King James is a dark-skinned. Hell, Shakka said King James is a dark-skinned white man. Brother, I'm going to say this, man, before I make my presentation, I think you should study a little more. Because if you thought this was nice, you ain't seen nothing yet. And with that, I'm going to fall back.
Let's do it like this. You know these niggas accept white people in their organization, right? Yeah, they do. They do. But they tell you the white man's the devil. You know, my man did a PowerPoint on King James. But he ain't addressed Diana, Queen of the Fairies, that King James is scared of. How the fuck you gonna do a whole hour on King James and not address the goddamn fairies and the witches he's scared of? Oh, now because it's not on topic. Yo, my man, if you telling black people that King James is the man we gotta fuck with,
That's not what I said.
if you telling black people to read the King James version of the Bible and you gonna do a whole hour presentation debunking or rebutting Shakka's claims, you see how they get? You see how they get when I get on the mic? You see how they get? You see how they get when I get on the mic?
I know how to stick to the
Yo, you see?
Light don't know how to stick.
You see how they get? Every time I get on the mic, they can't help themselves. I'm their God. That's what I'm telling you, man. I'm their God. I told you I own them, right? So now this is what I'm going to do. There's no excuses for what he's saying. My people, he's telling everybody, read the King James version of the Bible. Yo, listen. Shakka did a presentation before the debate.
About him being a homosexual.
Now watch this. After Shakka does his presentation before the debate,
I debunk it.
at a debate he didn't speak at, after the debate, he rebuts what? Not the debate, but something that took place before the debate.
Who asked me to do that?
So now hold on. I didn't ask you.
Asked me to do that.
Now here's the question.
Bring it out.
Here is the question.
Tell him.
Yo, I'm sure.
Tell him.
Yo, I'm gonna answer, brother. Hold on. Okay, I got you. I don't know about that. But listen, I don't mind if it's true. I don't mind. But yo, my brother, I'm not gonna do a whole hour on King James and ignore the fact that the motherfucker was scared of fairies and witches. I'm sorry. For what? It wasn't on point.
It wasn't on topic.
Now I'm gonna ask.
Wait, listen.
Hold on. I'm gonna ask y'all out there. If he had a whole hour to talk about King James, why wouldn't he address the fact that the motherfucker is scared of the tooth fairy?
Because it wasn't a topic.
Because it wasn't a topic.
Exactly.
Yo, listen. So look.
That's not what I do.
I'm telling black people. I got you, brother. I understand. You made your point. I'm telling black people to identify with the King James version of the Bible. I'm also going to rebut somebody's claims about King James being a homosexual. Yes. You couldn't give me a quick slide about why this nigga scared of a fucking tooth fairy?
It wasn't on top.
You couldn't give me one slide out of that hour and change?
That's what you do.
Hold on. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on. Yeah. Ask him now. Tell me about King James and this fucking fear of the goddamn fairy. Diana. Tell me about
Okay,
that.
but what's
You
the
right here. Tell
Okay,
me
but
now.
my question to you is what's
My question.
Polite? Look at you running off, man.
shit.
Look at you running off, Polite.
I'm running.
My question is this. Well, listen, I'm going to answer you. Listen. Let me ask you a question, right? Okay, the number one.
Me a question
Yeah, because
about something I just
no, listen. No, here's what you do,
have to
right?
answer it. I
No, I'm gonna answer you. Why don't you do like Shakka did? Shakka made a presentation on.
already
Wait a minute. Hold on. Why don't you do what Shakka did? Shakka made a presentation on a specific aspect of King James's life. I did a rebuttal on the specific aspect that he addressed. That's what I was supposed to do.
Okay, cool.
What you do is, when somebody say one thing, you like to bring up 5 or 6 other things. So now what I'm saying is that, why don't you make a presentation about King James being scared of fairies and everything else that you want to bring up, and I will address that at that time. How about that?
All right, listen. I'm not doing no presentation. I already did one. I already did one at the debate. Y'all lucky I gotta leave and take my family out. Yo, listen. When a black man, I'm coming. When a black man is telling black people, I want you to hear this. When a black man, I gotta tell the cabinets, when a black man tells black people to follow the King James version of the Bible, and another black man shows you that this black man he's sending all black people to is scared of goddamn fairies, and he then tells me, why don't you do a PowerPoint on it?
Do it.
My nigga, I did two. My nigga, I did.
Like I did Shakka.
Cut up.
cut you like
My nigga, I did 2 slides on it. I already put 2 slides on it, and thousands of people have seen it.
But you still didn't answer my question.
Just answer the question, bro.
You didn't answer my question.
I ain't doing no goddamn presentation. I did one already.
I know you're not.
Yo, listen.
We was talking about it
Y'all can believe in a tooth fairy all you want. And violent tooth fairies at that. King James is not scared of just any old tooth fairy. A violent fucking tooth fairy. You see what I'm saying? Danielle, you gotta stop that shit.
I know Polite. This from the man that couldn't answer no questions at the debate. He couldn't answer no questions at the debate. This from the man, right? Please, man. What a joke.
Get confession.
What a joke, man.